We'll start in 1 minute. Can you hear me? Do you want louder? So can you turn it up just a little bit? Thanks. Okay, so please put your phones and computers away for now. We'll use them in a few minutes. So have them close by. How are you guys? Good. I missed you. I always miss you. I didn't see you. You don't miss me, do you? It's the highlight of my week, or one of them. Okay, so we have received a lot of requests for networking help from you guys. I've had more emails than I can count from this class, requesting one-on-one meetings and just general help in networking. I think that the overall feedback that we've had, which has been great, has been that you've liked our speakers. Some of you have wanted to connect with them. And I think most of you are still looking for jobs. Who is looking for a job still? Okay, virtually all of you. Okay. Before we start, and I'll introduce Angela, and she has amazing experience. I always like to open with this. How's it going so far? The job hunt. Tough? What's working, what's not?
Career fairs, generally not working if you're mechanical.
Would you believe I went to like 30 interviews as an undergrad in every kind of ridiculous thing, and then I finally got it through a career fair in mechanical engineering too? It was bizarre, but I hated my job, so I don't know if that's helpful. Yeah. Did I tell you guys? I did tell you guys the job I passed up to take that job.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, don't forget that. Okay. Okay, so career fairs are not great. Tell me more. What's going on there? Yes?
I mean, if I could add, I've been to a couple, not traditional career fairs, but like the startup career fairs they have on campus. I just got back from the startup pitches they have there. And I got offers from like 7 different places as an undergrad with no experience. So like, I know it's harder to pursue an actual job with startups, but like something to keep in mind is that like demand there is so much higher for what you're gonna be able to do. And even if it's an experience where you're not gonna be able to say, make the most money out of college, I feel that working at startups, a lot of times you're able to get a lot of really, really valuable experience that you can use as leverage for further positions. So that's something to think about if like career fairs maybe are a little bit more standoffish because they are able to source only the top talent. Like if you're pretty talented and you're competent in what you're doing, like startups really, really need that talent. And if you're willing to do so for a couple of years, maybe less pay than you get at a traditional firm, it can really be used as leverage for the future.
Okay, so John is an undergrad, and why are you still going to career fairs? I saw my LinkedIn, you got a job last week.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations. So John is a different position. He's an undergrad. Clearly, you guys don't have that amount of time, right? You have 6 or 7 months to find a position. But he does have a good point. Listen, my cousin is one of the heads of data science and product at Bird. You guys know the scooter company? Okay, he's a big shot there. And what he told me is that they get a lot of applications for data science positions from people with engineering degrees from top schools. And the supply has gotten high in that area. And he says they essentially filter it down to people that have actually done the position before, okay? And I mean, there's good and bad news there. And relevant to what John said, you do have an opportunity. It's October. I know you have your capstone projects, which are excellent for this, okay? But this one big takeaway that I want you to have with regards to your capstone projects, which I'll coach next semester, so hopefully I'll see some of you again, is things that we've had previous semesters. Those capstone projects are excellent opportunities to show what you can do. But every semester, what ends up happening is you guys spend 95% of your time refining your algorithm, and you're looking for jobs, and there's no connection between the two. You can describe it to some degree. We're doing this data science thing, but you haven't actually spent the time to show the business value on paper, right? We did this data science project that did this takeaway, right? This is what I can do. So I really implore you, don't spend 90% of your time refining and screwing around with your algorithm. Because people don't even know what you're doing. Nobody can understand your algorithm. Nobody's going to go and spend all day looking at that to hire you. They're going to want to see the actual business takeaways, right? You'll have your own data science project, obviously, to do as part of your application. But I really think you need to be able to make the case, this is the value I can bring to a company because this is what I've done before. And complement that, if you can, with some type of internship right now, right? At these career fairs, you have enough time. You do. And you don't need to do 40 hours a week, right? It's the best advice I can give you right off the bat. We're going to, again, sorry, Angela, to make you sit there this whole time.
I'm listening because I concur with that.
Yeah.
It's always lots of value of what I'm doing, and how can I translate what I'm doing to value to the business.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I've hired a ton of people. I've hired 3 former students to work for me in the past, right? I know what people are looking for. So does Angela. More questions. What has worked? What has not worked? Yes.
It's like, I mean, maybe it's just my field. I'm trying to go into biotech, and people don't hire until you're ready to sign like within that month.
Okay.
So if that reassures anyone.
So what you're saying is they're not ready to hire you until you graduate.
Yeah, they want you to start.
Yeah, and that's what happens.
Hire you like half a year in advance.
Yeah, and so your opportunity, just because you didn't get a job at the career fair, is not over, because most companies don't do that sort of workforce planning ahead. You have to have a lot of resources and finance to be able to do that. Many companies are looking on a rolling basis, and you don't know what's going on in that company in terms of the funding they're getting, the innovation they're doing, who's leaving, who's getting promoted, what the backfill looks like. I mean, there are all kinds of things going on in the background. And many companies, the startups obviously, are on a rolling basis. So, that's why that consistent effort all the way through is really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, thank you. What else hasn't worked? Yes.
So, for my honor society, we sell resume books to companies.
Yeah.
And for a project 3 semesters ago, I built a generator. So, a recruiter comes online and they want this and this and this skill. Let's match them up with a custom resume book, the skills that they really need. And so I had the opportunity to talk with a lot of recruiters to find out what it is that they actually care about, what they're looking at. First takeaway is nobody cares about your GPA as long as it's above 3.0. Mm-hmm. And anything that I say that you disagree with, just feel free to chime in.
That doesn't mean you should aim for a 3.0, but just that is good. Yeah.
Exactly.
Still try.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, do something that matters. Do something that's relevant to a specific company and what they're trying to do, and really try to focus. When you submit a resume to a company,
Yeah.
I submit the same one to 10 or 15 or 20 different companies. Talk about something that they're working on, something that's similar, something where there's alignment.
Yeah.
And then like the final point is, like, get your friends together, come with your resumes, and then say, we're going to read all of these in 5 minutes. Put yourself in their shoes and think about, like, how readable is my resume?
Yeah. Dude, this is great.
Yeah, it's a 6-second
Yeah.
read.
And then they just need to pop out. Does that happen with your resume or not?
Yeah.
That's how you're going to get it.
Something is either working or something is off about your resume or your approach, right? Something, it's not, and sometimes it is luck, okay? It is definitely luck. But the best thing you can do, like we've said this entire time, is get feedback and have those conversations. And the last piece of advice I'll give you, that was really good, thank you, is that, as I said in the beginning, if these conversations are supposed to give you a sense that people's career pathways, very few of these people had it figured out. In fact, I don't think any of them have, right? From undergrad to where they are now, they've all been zigzagging all over the place. Look, I'm probably going to tell you my life story in a couple weeks. Carl back there has heard it, but the majority of you haven't. It will surprise you, okay? It will surprise you quite a bit. My personal life, my professional life, I have 2 versions of my biography. I have the NEMA biography of achievements, and then I have my failure biography, which will stun you, okay? Right? If you ever feel bad about yourself for 5 minutes, wait till you hear my bio, okay? I mean it. Listen, I left here for a few years in the middle of my undergrad, okay? I had a lot of soul searching to do, okay? And it was not a smooth path for me. So, and it isn't for most of the people that have been up here. And that's the point I've been trying to drill home by starting at the beginning with all their conversations about what did you want to do. And so if you feel that way, if you feel things aren't going your way, it's normal, okay? Don't think that there's something wrong with you. Mm-hmm. There's not. I promise you. I absolutely promise you. Yeah. And it feels like that, but the best thing you can do is two things. I would say get feedback from your classmates. And second, the point I've been trying to drive home is that you have an idea somewhere in your head, maybe in the back of your head, about what it is you really want to do. And as much as you know that thing, the people with whom you are interviewing can smell out when you just want a job, okay? So the best thing you can do is have conversations. John was very interested in environmental science. He asked me about it. I introduced him to my friend Matt, who is some big shot. Where is he?
It's called the Climate Mobilization.
Yeah, Climate Mobilization. And you met him, right? Yeah. And he gave you a book, and he spoke.
And, yeah, beyond that, he sends me like an article a day. We talk a ton about the stuff that he's learning.
Yeah.
The stuff that I'm learning. Like, it's been really valuable.
Yeah, exactly. And so have those conversations with people, but also realize that not every single person that came up here is the right person to have a conversation with. Like finding your journey, finding where you want to go conversations are not always with these people, right? These are people that, like, if you truly align with them, you should meet with them, right? So it's a fine balance. But okay, so let me introduce Angela after that rant. That was only 12 minutes. Jesus, I feel like I was talking for 30. Okay.
And I can add more to what some of the conversations here.
Yeah. Any last
Beyond
questions?
networking.
Any last questions? Yes.
Yeah, some of us here, like in the master's program, or I don't know, maybe there's people doing a PhD are pretty specialized. And sometimes I've found when going to the career fairs that these positions that we're interested in, for me it's controls, exist at these companies, but they don't necessarily like bring that person,
right.
Kind of bring the more generalist person.
Totally. Or HR.
Right, or HR, right?
Yeah.
And so then you end up talking to them, and sometimes it's a smaller team because it's a more specialized position, and so it doesn't really seem like it goes anywhere. And so a lot of times they tell you to just apply online or something like that. And so where you should have this great opportunity to network at the career fair and stuff becomes just like, I feel like throwing your resume into the black box. Okay, get it. But that makes it completely up to you to go 5 steps further than that. Don't listen. Again, I will tell you my path to teaching here next week when the camera's not rolling and there's no evidence. Okay, but I cannot tell you what I had to do to get a teaching job here. Okay, I cannot tell you. I will tell you. Okay, I will tell you, but like I said, I don't want the cameras rolling. So, I probably sent 200 emails or knocked on 100 doors of people that were at this school and was told no, again and again and again. And look, I get paid a lot less here than I do at my other job, but this was my dream. This is what I wanted. And I would not take no, right? So we'll talk about it next week. But yeah, so what are you going to do? The HR person or the person is a generalist and you're going to give your resume and say that's it? No way. I really like controls. Would you be able to connect me with somebody? Do you have a business card? Email them 3 times if you have to, 5 times. I'm serious. What do you have to lose? Right? Who in the group heads controls? I really don't know. I think they're in Pittsburgh somewhere. Great. Do you mind if I email you next week and maybe you can find? I promise you have a 10% chance of her or him responding. Email again. Right? Be a salesman for you. Hustle for you. Don't just give your resume. It's the rest of your life. Right? What else are you going to do? Go home and do what? Right? Hustle. Right? And you'll get it. Yes?
Just quickly, one more point, I've got to say this. A big theme as well that I found with people who have found success, you get your resume through, you go to your first interview, and you don't manage to finish the problem in the allocated time. Get their information, finish the problem, send it back. Everybody that has done that got the job.
Yeah, exactly. Show how bad you want it. And they can tell. You don't write a thank you follow-up email. This guy doesn't really give a damn.
Yeah,
Or girl.
follow-up. Recruiters really respond well to follow-up emails, and they share that information with the team.
Totally.
And so if you feel you've stumbled in an interview, first of all, if you're in an interview, you don't know the answer, tell them, I don't know that right now, but I'm going to think about it. And then think about it. And then answer it in a follow-up email. And they will share that information. And it will indicate to the team that you're thoughtful, you follow up on your word, and that you have humility around the fact that actually you don't have all the answers. And what they're looking for is not just do your skills fit, but do you fit with the culture? Do you fit with the team? And it's huge. It's up there very high, particularly if you're a company of under 300. Every employee you add impacts the culture. Okay, so there's a concentration dilution effect. If they add somebody to a team of under 300, that ripple effect on somebody who is a bad apple is enormous. So they're very careful about that.
Absolutely. Schedule time with me. There's a lot of you, which is going to be tough, but it has to be when the semester's over. Let me learn about you. I can go to bat for you, right? So can she. We're your allies here. We're here to help. Don't forget that. And we like helping you, right? Okay, let me introduce Angela. After that, ramble again. Okay, Angela Powers works as a career coach and educator for the Fung Institute. For the last 10 years, she has partnered with leaders in organizations to successfully build teams for fast-growth startups in the Bay Area and location-based mobile marketing, online publishing, SaaS, impact investing, sustainable energy, and commerce. She's coached emerging leaders on communication and engagement skills and worked with early and mid-career women in career transitions. She recently submitted her master's project, a qualitative study of women's experience in negotiating compensation after training. She's originally from Cambridge, England, and worked on the East Coast and West Coast. Most of the jobs that she landed were the result of networking. She doesn't take it personally when people don't respond to her outreach. And she realizes that networking is about relating, connecting, and remaining curious. On the recruiter side, she's received messages from candidates that grab her attention and motivate her to respond. And she's had to create messages that inspire candidates to join organizations where she's building teams and where competition for talent is fierce. Let's give a hand to Angela. Where's my notebook? That was bad last week. Twice my microphone fell off during Roy. That was very embarrassing. Okay, so I'm going to let Angela start. She has a very interesting roadmap that you can go ahead.
Yeah, I think we have a few PowerPoint slides. We want to keep it with a light structure, but also organic. And if you have any questions along the way and you need some clarification, we can stop and then have an exercise at the end of it where we actually get started thinking about networking and creating messaging. So, and I just figured I would take you through what I feel are the sort of best to-dos when you're networking. I have a lot of experiences landing jobs in places that I didn't think. I landed a job in Southeast Asia just because I talked to a businessman in a cafe, and so that's how it works. I've actually landed a lot of jobs after hanging out in cafes. So, so networking, even though we're going to focus on, LinkedIn because that's what everybody talks about, networking is really going on all the time. And I think you have to be really aware of that. There are always opportunities to have conversations with people, and you never know where they lead. And that's where most of the work I have done as a result of conversations, just random conversations I've had. So.
Okay.
So I think we were going to do a sort of poll to begin with to find out who actually likes networking. And
It's about half of you.
Networking, when you go to these networking events, it's just an issue I have with the word networking, where if you go and actively try and network, it seems more counterintuitive than just, like you're saying, striking up a casual conversation in a cafe, which
feels fake.
It just
feels phony.
Fake, it feels forced.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's interesting that's where I was going to start actually, is that we need to go into this reframing it. So instead of calling it networking, maybe you want to call it community building. Maybe you want to call it having conversations. I think people tend to assign that it's a heavy weight that the networking label hangs on you, and you do feel it's forced. I think one of the things about community building, or whatever label you want to give it, language is important, is that to see it as relational. It's not a transaction. You may think it's a transaction. You may think, I'm doing this because I need to get something from it. And because I need to get something from it, from somebody I don't really know, I now can't do this. I'm uncomfortable. What you need to understand is that people do want to help you. We are social creatures. We like to interact with each other. But you have to empower people. And so when people, it's the sort of the Franklin effect, when they see that you're coming to them and asking them for help, you go up in their perception. They esteem you more as a result of the fact that you are vulnerable enough to say, I need your help. It's how you do that,
I understand what you're saying. I feel phony networking sometimes, okay? But I've also changed my approach to it, right? And if you go there, you remember Rushman was here talking about her time at Google. They kept on elevating her to different positions because she would go around and talk to people. She didn't call it networking. She was just trying to learn about what they do. Now, if you go around doing that with the intent and purpose of, I still want to get a job from this, but don't act like you want a job. Like, don't let them think this is transactional. I'm acting like I want to, I get it. It's hard to fake that the entire time if you really need a job, which you do, right? But the best advice I could give you is, I had a student, actually, an MBA student, a few weeks ago tell me that he was really struggling with networking because it felt like exactly that. It felt fake. It felt that he was always about to ask for something, but he didn't know, and he would meet people and then not stay in touch with them. I was like, just lower your expectations as far as what that relationship is supposed to be, right? Talk to somebody, ask them about them, learn about what they do, briefly talk about yourself, and you have succeeded. You have networked. They don't need to be your best friend. They don't need to introduce you to Sergey Brin tomorrow. They're in your network. I'm in your network. I barely met you guys, okay? I'm in your network. But set your expectations at that. And then when you reach out to them for help, right, or find a position, it's a numbers game. They don't need to be your best friend, honestly, right? These people that you've had these conversations with them, one of them will very likely help you. So just reset your expectations about what do you want them to think? I want them to like me. I want them to want to give me a job. Get to know them. And I'm sorry, I'm going to go on. I know. The best thing I can think of was this. They had this strange dinner in my honor a couple years ago at St. Mary's, and they had a group of these young students that were there, and they were all very nervous, and they were all acting very strange when they were eating. Nobody would eat a bite till I would, and the whole thing was very uncomfortable. and I really truly was just want to be everybody relax. We're sweating. This is just a meal. And this young man who had been in the army in Afghanistan was a bit older, and at the end of the thing, everybody came and thanked me, or he asked me for a business card. He was I want to thank you so much. Do you mind if I walk with you to your car? Now, does that sound weird? No. Honestly, he did it in such a professional way. Honestly, I got to know John one time because I was leaving, and John, you walked with me in my car.
That's kind of funny. That's how I met a lot of people, walking them to their car.
Yeah, yeah.
You're just all right, I'll walk
Yeah.
with you.
Now, I don't want a trail of you to follow every one of our speakers to their car, okay? That's weird, okay? Let that not be your takeaway. But John, right?
Yeah.
So, and he walked me in my car, and he said, I just want to thank you so much for this. And then he wrote a really thoughtful follow-up, which I'll pull up at some point. And he said, I want to thank you so much for your time. It was really inspiring meeting you, blah, blah, blah. And I really hope we can stay in contact. Would you be able to get coffee? Look, I turn down a lot of coffees, honestly, because they come a lot, right? I've had, hundreds of former students that, I'm an important part of their network. And so I don't take on a lot of new ones, especially if they're not in my class. And so, but I did in his case, because it was so genuine, and it was so this was a person who just acted respectfully and was curious. And I showed that email to the class last year, and this girl just goes, he just spent the whole email kissing your ass, which I thought was clever. She was kind of right. But at the same time, like, you know, he was really genuine, right? And he didn't ask me for anything. And I was happy, and I've met him for coffee a million times, and he now works at Workday, and I'm supposed to meet him again in 2 weeks, right? And that type of thing, just it was a very normal connection, showing interest in that. Please.
Yeah, and we'll talk later about, you know, having a strategy around this. It does require effort, and you do have to do it consistently. And it's easy to give up after you've sent 3 messages on LinkedIn and no one's got back to you. You're going to throw up your hands, go, okay, that's it, I'm done. Well, you know, it happens to all of us. You just keep moving. It's not personal. You know, people don't respond for lots of reasons that you don't know about. Often it's just that they're super busy. You know, I have someone I'm ashamed to admit that who connected with me in May and asked for help in May. Tomorrow I'll have a conversation. It's October, but that was my bad, you know. But I just lost the trail. I mean, she's very tenacious and she just kept at it. And so that's what happens. You just don't know what's going on in the background. You know, from a recruiting perspective. The reason why referrals are so important is that, first of all, often companies have referral systems that they've set up, and they incentivize employees to make referrals. And so they have various incentive packages. So that employee may want to make that referral, and they may have a structure around who can be referred and what the background of that person is that they're referring. But they're often incentivized by many different things: time off, pay, bonuses, who knows. And another reason that they set up these referral systems is because referrals are more likely to stay in their position far longer than someone who comes through a job application website, because they're just more committed, they're more loyal, they have connection earlier. And so for the employer, it's much more cost effective in terms of retention and actually performance to have somebody who has been a referral.
Key takeaway, they want to refer you, okay? Keep that in mind.
Yep. Yeah. And so another thing about referrals in terms of the recruitment cycle is when a recruiter gets a referral, that recruiter has to respond to that referral immediately. So anybody else who's come through the application tracking system, they're going to be pushed aside for the referral. And that referral is followed through and tracked because they're gathering statistics on that. Because they know, again, that the referral is a cost-effective way for them to hire in many different ways, because of retention and performance and the actual cost to hire. Because they've spent all this money on marketing and advertising the job and waiting for that right person, and now they have a referral.
Yeah,
so
I'm sorry.
No, but they're going to move the person through the system.
Okay.
Does this concept apply just to big companies or also to medium companies? Do also medium companies have these referral systems?
I would say it applies often more for smaller and medium companies, actually, because again, with this cultural issue and all the sort of money that they're willing to spend on cost to hire, and you know, they're usually going to be a little bit more flexible. They are looking for the more generalist. They're going to take a chance on people. I'm not saying the Googles of the world don't, because I have stories around Google, but you know, yes, they're using a referral system too, and they'll move very quickly on that.
Let me put this in perspective. My company has 400 people. We're a venture capital firm that everybody and their mother wants to work there. Okay? I received about 5 emails this morning from people that were cold emailing me, asking me for coffee, et cetera, because they wanted to work at our company. We have a referral bonus system. We don't need it, but we still have it. Yeah.
And if you can tell something about it, how does it work exactly?
So basically it's this, and I can even tell you, I submitted somebody a few weeks ago, a former student of mine, right? Which is just that they have positions that look, keep in mind, unemployment right now is low, okay? It's extremely low. We are at full employment, right? For those of you that haven't studied economics, that means we do not have enough people to fill jobs, right? And so everybody's competing over the same people. We're at full employment. And so what that means is that if there's a position that's advertised internally, and this was an entry-level position that I submitted somebody for, and they say, okay, we have a salesperson, our company does a lot of sales, for this cybersecurity vertical, like we offer 3,000 or 4,000. At Yahoo, it was up to like 8 or 9 referral bonus that I get for submitting one of you, right? But it also doesn't work like that I can say like, you know, you're a smart guy, let me just submit you generally. That's a lot harder, right? You have to identify a position that's a good fit and then get it to somebody. Typically, I go straight to the hiring manager if I really want to get somebody hired and I vouch for them, right? But if you find a position, you're on the clock is the problem, right? The minute there's a position, you are on the clock because you can submit internally, but everybody else inside the company that wants that position or outside has already submitted. And so for you to network your way into a position that's already posted, you can do it, but like you're on the clock. So it's always better to kind of be networking constantly within an industry, right?
And there are often, you know, that's the hidden job market, you know, and so there are often positions that are not advertised and they're actually created. You know, I've worked in companies where we've created positions based on individuals that have networked with us because we feel that they would be a good addition. So we'll figure it out if we think that there's a good fit. And to your point, yeah, once that position is posted, now you're on the run to try to fill it fairly quickly. And, you know, the resumes start coming in. And so if someone starts networking with you and reaching out and making a connection and sending you a message that tells you they know something about your company, they are willing to give evidence why they would be a good fit and a little bit about that background, but also connect with you personally, particularly if you're talking to a decision maker, you know, you want to make it about them also, then we're more willing to have that conversation. And again, that person, you know, goes to the top as opposed to all the resumes that are coming through the applicant tracking system. I've looked at thousands of resumes over the years and I have seconds to look at them. You know, and that's, I think the point earlier was you've got to join the dots, you know, so the recruiter's not going to do it, the hiring manager's not, they're not going to do your work. If you've buried information in that document, they're just going to go, okay, we're moving on, because they just don't have time, you know, so it's up to you to do that work ahead of time. And if you feel like I need to put the whole of the kitchen sink in there, good luck, because they won't be able to find out, can you really fit the job? An interesting fact is, if you put everything in there, they're going to say, okay, that's it, that's all that person is. If you put enough that tells them you have the potential to do that job, they want to know more.
I leave off my resume my time at Goldman Sachs, okay? Most people would keep that on there. I don't think it's relevant, right? I just don't.
Yeah.
I think I think my resume is like a problem statement, right? We're talking about design. What problem can I solve? Can Nima solve? Yeah. And I don't think a lot of that experience, like that's here, is relevant to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I've hired VPs of product who have 10 or 15 years experience. Some of them have 1 page, and you're like, all right. Because they just know, you know, and they have a progression in the history of their work that tells you, if I've done this, I know necessarily that person could do all of this. Here's where they are. Yeah. And so, you know, they don't feel a need to put in 2 or 3 pages, and you know, it works. So in terms of, you know, continuing, I think we're doing a nice sort of, you know, segueing. Yeah, so in terms of the LinkedIn, which is where a lot of the networking takes place, I think the big thing, if you're going to start really using this as a tool and planning, and again, it's problem solving. Just like you'd solve a problem in class, this is a problem to be solved. And you wouldn't go at that problem without some kind of a strategy, without thinking it through and go, okay, maybe I do have to set up a spreadsheet, and maybe I do have to be on a calendar for this, and this has to be a consistent effort. And so where do I want to put that effort? And so you have to think to yourself, okay, before I even start to use LinkedIn, is my LinkedIn profile where I want it to be? And do I have a few versions of my resume? So that when I start linking and connecting and somebody responds to me, I don't have to pause to think about, okay, now I have to send them some documents and I don't have them. Or if I connect with them and they're going to look at your profile, if they're willing to connect most of the time, then they're going to be like, okay, so what's really going on here? So if you haven't figured that piece out, you've lost an opportunity.
Yeah. Two things. Number one, can somebody start an attendance sheet, please? Why is this so awkward every time? Why can one of you pull out a piece of paper, write the date, and put your name on it? Awkward class. Thank you. Second, one caveat about LinkedIn. Look, I think LinkedIn is very good for what it's good for. The likelihood of somebody looking at your LinkedIn profile and offering you a job just based on your profile is low, okay? I've never had that happen, right? People look at my LinkedIn probably like 20 times a day. I get views on it. But there are very few people that are just out of the blue going to come, especially as you guys are leaving a master's program. Look at your LinkedIn profile and say like, man, I want that guy or girl to come like work here. It's unlikely. So I would say be very careful about how you spend your time on LinkedIn. There's a lot of people wasting a lot of time posting a lot of crap on there. It's usually for sales. They're trying to sell their consulting work or their coaching work or some other ridiculous thing. Or they're writing insipid comments on articles thinking that Elon Musk is reading it and going to hire them. Okay, he's not. Okay? Nobody's reading your comments on LinkedIn. Okay? You're not going to get hired that way, no matter how clever or funny they are. Okay? So be purposeful while you're on there, which is for networking. So.
Yeah, and that being said,
I feel like you're light and I'm dark. Am I dark? Right? I feel like she's nicer than me. Everybody's nicer than me. That's fine.
No, I've had to do the networking. I've had to also, as a recruiter, looking for passive candidates who are not coming to us, but we want them. I only have one chance to sort of see what they look like on that profile, and I'm putting in search terms. So another trick is, if you're seeing consistently across the board roles and they have certain terms in them, those are the terms you should be using in all your documents, because that's what gets picked up when they do a Boolean search, because that's what they put in. They put in these search terms, because again, they only have so much time. So if you haven't realized that you have to fit with the job descriptions and fit with their language, I would even argue that when you create documents, you should be looking at the tone of the company. What language did they use to just describe their product and their service and their career site and everything? And tone is really important. And picking up on people like what is similar. We're primed to respond to similarity. And so recruiters and hiring managers are primed to respond to documents and information that's very similar to what they're looking for and similar to the language that the culture is using every single day, which is how they market their product, their service, their career site. That's the thread that runs through.
And this is a simpler thing, but it should seem obvious, but highlight the things, here this is the end, that you want to do. Not the things that you've spent most of your time doing, right? And there's a difference here. If you spent the last year doing a project on fluid dynamics and it was an amazing project, but you hated doing it and don't want to work there and want to work in controls, okay? And you've done some controls work, highlight that, what you want to do, right? Don't spend 3/4 of a page talking about a project that is irrelevant to your career goals, right?
So as far as LinkedIn, how do you begin? Like if you don't have a lot of connections, one is to just join groups along the lines of what you're saying, which you have some interest in. And hobbies is not a bad thing either to add into your LinkedIn profile, because it's a starting conversation. You might find somebody who you're really interested in that company, and you look down and they've volunteered for the same organization, or they've led something in a sports or whatever it is. It's a conversation starter. So joining groups that have professional or other interests is a really good way, and the stats are that I think I have a slide on it, and we don't have to show all the slides, but it's 25% more response rate if you connect with somebody and message somebody who you're in a group together. And I can't remember what LinkedIn, I don't know what the maximum amount of groups you can join, but I think there's quite a number of groups. I typically will suggest choosing a group where there are a large number of members and they're active, and you can see their threads, and they're more likely then to respond to you. Having connections and asking your first connection to connect them with somebody that they're connected to. There's a way to go into LinkedIn and ask them to make that referral for you. Getting referrals is really important. Having them sending in statements about your work, there is evidence. Recruiters will look at that, the recommendations, what's been written, and you can shape that. It's just like someone, when you ask for a reference letter, they often ask you to write it for them, they'll look at it and then they'll sign off on it. So you can shape these recommendations yourself. I have an example of a random, maybe I could bring that up, a random message that I sent. I've sent a lot of message. This is over time. So this is a message I sent last year, actually. I've taken off the name of the company. I just wanted to connect with her. And I basically, in a nutshell, in that one sentence, summarized the key service and what this company is doing. So this is what this company is doing. And I told them, I know what you're doing. And I found a way to demonstrate, I know what you're doing. This is what I'm really interested in. And she connected with me fairly quickly. And then I wrote back this. And this is a bit of a longer message than I typically would recommend. But the reason I went straight into me, and again, I will talk about this, is I knew that some of these things that I was doing were things that they were doing in that company, and I looked through the positions and I saw these are the types of things that they want someone to do. And so I wanted her to quickly understand, I went and did the speed coaching. It was a gig that I got, and I know you're adding team members. Can we just have a conversation? And when I talked to her, it was as informal as that. I did not bring up a position. I did not say, okay, here's a position I'm really interested in. Not at all in that conversation. Towards the end of that conversation, she said to me, oh, okay, we have 2 positions I think you might be a fit for, and so I'm going to connect you with 2 other people. And so I was curious. I really liked this company. And the reason, when you really like a company and you really want to work for them and you really feel like there's a role there, that's when you can write really good messages. It's just the same with a cover letter. When people struggle with a cover letter, it's probably because they're not that interested in the company. And they're forcing themselves to put in an application. And that's when you can just read it. It's just this sort of rote thing that they go through. And so that's, I think, to your point is, what do you really want to do? Where do you want to do it? And who do you want to work with? These are all important to think about.
Ask questions, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to look at this from a different viewpoint.
Yeah.
You're a recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
What resources do you use to connect with potential candidates? If you're a small startup and you want to recruit top talent, what strategies can you take?
The same strategies as you would do to find out. You start connecting with people on LinkedIn, candidates that you think are interested. who might be interesting to you and interested. I typically am looking, when I was a recruiter, I'm looking for people who are not at the level of the role I'm hiring for, because I know they want to stretch. And so it's the one level up. When a hiring manager says go for the same level, that's not a good incentive for a candidate. So what's the stretch goal? What's the stretch that you're willing to give them? What is the challenge? What's the problem they're going to solve? Most software engineers, that's a huge competition for software engineers. They really want to solve problems. Do you have interesting problems for them to solve? That's how you approach a software engineer. It's not about the money and the name necessarily, although there is a percentage of people who that's attractive to them. But for most people, it's what kind of problems can I solve at your company? And will you give me the freedom to do that? And how will I do that? And who am I going to do it with? Those are the kinds of things that are attractive to candidates.
So to actually identify them, LinkedIn has been a primary resource?
Yeah. And, I've asked for help over the years for people who I hardly know. How I landed the job here was I reached out to somebody who had interviewed me for a role. And I was too senior for the role. Years went by, and then I reached back out to her and said, can I just have a chat with you? And then after I chatted with her, she then set up a meeting with her supervisor, and then it just sort of went from there. I've also recently messaged someone at IDEO who was somebody I interviewed for a role, and I had to reject her. But because we had a great relationship, and I treated her with respect through the process, she was so excited to hear from me. I didn't give her a role. I had to reject her. But we had a good relationship. So sometimes the people where you feel like you weren't able to help them, or even a candidate rejection, as long as you've treated people well through that process, people are willing to help you.
Yeah. I would add one caveat to that I would say that your likelihood as a student from being located on LinkedIn is probably it's less than somebody, for them to come out and find you, than somebody experienced. Right? That's it. So, and maybe you can speak to this. I don't think recruiters as often are looking at student profiles, scouring them as often as they do for more senior positions.
It depends. I worked for a startup. I know I'm not supposed to say Stanford here, right? But anyway, I worked for a startup, and the CEO pushed for certain grads from a certain program. That was her push, and so I had to go out and seek those people. Yeah. And that was, and again, it just depends.
Okay, good to know.
And some companies, they want to shape their culture. They want to shape that person. And startup world, we're less likely to hire into the startup world if somebody has been working at a very hierarchical organization with a very specific focused role, because we don't feel that they'll have the flexibility and versatility and also humility to be able to do some of the things that you have to do when you work in a startup, or when you work in a very fast growth company where you don't have processes in place. A lot of people can't handle that. It's always a good idea to know what you can handle, and to know that if the startup world is really where you can thrive. For a lot of people, they can't thrive in it. It's very specific. They like to be in a very specific hierarchical organization. But to your point about students, it depends. It really depends. I've hired a lot of students when I worked for one of the largest open source online publishing platforms, the Public Library of Science. I hired a lot of students, and actually what was interesting in, I hired them into editorial and publications for science journals. I used to love it if they would tell me on their resume that they had done a couple of stints at Christmas in a retail store like Crate and Barrel. And the reason is, and this is how you can transfer skills, is I knew that they could deal with the Christmas rush, they could deal with these customers who were probably not going to be very nice to them, and if they had done it well and I could speak to their reference, I knew they could handle the job. And they would say to me, well, I didn't think I should put that on my resume. I said, you have to understand, I would pick you out of the group because of that, because I knew that what they could tolerate.
Yeah. Okay, Angel, why don't we get to the interactive? We've just had an hour to do the interactive question.
Yeah, so we were just going to, one of the things about starting the whole networking process is, and I love this author, Anne Lamott, and she wrote this book called Bird by Bird. And, hold on. And what's great about it is her brother had this huge project, and he went to the father and he was in tears, and he just couldn't do it, and I highlight he was immobilized by this hugeness of this task. And basically his dad said, you just got to take it bird by bird. That's it. And that's what I think you do with most problems. You just start them and you just slowly just go at them. And it's the same with the networking. Don't get disheartened. You just keep going at it. Seriously, I just move on. I've sent so many messages over time, all my life, and I don't it's not personal. I just keep moving. If someone doesn't want to get back to me, it's okay. And I had to make the culture shift, when I came to this country. As a Brit, we say sorry for everything. Everything we do, we're sorry for. So trying to make the shift here and actually go out and speak up, it's really changed me living in this country. I'm a totally different animal now. When I go back to the UK, people are trying to quiet me down, And I was in Harrods once, and there's a famous politician and author called Jeffrey Archer, Lord Jeffrey Archer. And he's sitting at a table and he's signing these books. And there's a bunch of people, there's a queue of people waiting. And I see him across the store and I shout out to him because he has these chocolates on the table. And I say, who are those chocolates for? And he turns to me and he said, they're for you if you'd like one. And I went over, and there's this whole group, and they were really upset with me, and I got a chocolate from Lord Jeffrey Archer, who I never knew, because I got Americanized, so there you go. I have a few other stories about that. So anyway, I once told Ben Bradley of the Washington Post, I had a lunch with him, I once told him that papers were on their way out. This was many years ago. And I give him a lot of credit for chuckling over that, and here we are in the online world. But anyway, so we thought we'd just do this project, groups of 5 people, and just to get things started, really. And so, maybe there was a speaker here that inspired you, okay? And so what we would, maybe this first little, workshop-y thing is, get together as in a group of 5 and and talk among yourself and say, okay, so was there a speaker who inspired you? What did they say? And would you like to share that with them when you connect with them? And then we'll ask around what you come up with. How long do we want for this?
Do you have a slide next?
Oh, that's it. I said just
okay,
start.
Let's start there. So guys, take your computers out. The whole goal of this is, okay, we've had about 7 or 8 speakers now, I think. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a speaker from this section, but the whole goal is to start the cold email process, right? Have a message with your personal story, a couple lines, what inspired, and start practicing with this right now. So craft something like that, get in a group of 5 and start sharing it with each other. I'll walk around and check on you. Don't do other stuff.
It's just a beginning.
I'm on to you guys. I'm on to you. Yeah, I mean, think about it.
Doing other words.
Yeah, don't do that.
Hey.
Okay. First of all, craft craft a cold email, like for yourself, right? That you're gonna write to people, that just to connect with them, right? So we had this conversation. What's his name again? Nick. That's right. Nick. We had this conversation last week about like reaching out to these people. Let's do it, dude. Of those speakers, who did you want to connect with? There was Roy. There was Damien. There was Layla. There was Reshma.
Like my level, like other engineers and stuff.
No, reach out to. You don't know. You don't know. And if he doesn't reach out, then you can reach out to 4 other people. But you start by saying, you know.
You guys want to connect with him?
I noticed that we both went to University of Virginia, you know, and you could maybe share something about your experience.
Guys,
I really love this.
Craft a cold email.
Know?
And look,
then I'm just curious, what did you like about University of Virginia? You're
hell.
working for a great company that I'm
Connected
really love to know more
as
about it.
hell.
That's it.
He knows
Very brief.
everybody.
It's just like, how can I
Okay,
make
he's
a
been here for a
connection?
zillion years.
You never know. You know, obviously,
He will meet
you
with
hope
you.
you had a good
His office is 10
experience at
minutes
that
from here.
university. You
It's
know,
on
you
the
hope
Berkeley
he
campus.
supports the university. But it's
How do you
it's
think
the
I
way
got him to
begin.
be my speaker? I cold emailed
I
him.
would say, do not say to yourself, a VP will not get back to me.
Okay.
That is not necessarily true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then if they, and I'm happy if you want to share that message with me and I look at it before you send it, and maybe make some suggestions. If you want me to
that's
edit it
something
or
you
do
remember
anything
about
like
what he
that.
said. That's
I'm sure you're
great.
capable of doing it without
thought a lot
me,
about your
but, you know, I'm
Changemaker
happy to look at it if you
story.
pass it by.
I wanted to wait till an appropriate
and
time
I would
because I'm
also
sure you
say
received a
if he
lot
doesn't
of
or she doesn't
outreach
get back
after
to you
that.
right away,
That I would love
wait a couple of
to,
weeks
you
and
know,
just
quickly
do
buy
a
you a cup
nudge.
of coffee
And
or
the
come by
nudge
your
is
office
like,
if you have 15,
you know,
20
I know you're
minutes
super busy,
to meet you
know,
and see if
but
I can
I
be
just
of
want to
help
say again,
or
you know, I
something
just
like that.
really love to
right?
make a
There
connection,
you go, dude.
and you know, and you
He
can
can
share
help you.
with him or
He's
her,
in your network
you know,
now.
something you might have found out about the company.
Who are you
like
thinking?
maybe there's something on the news, or you know, like I don't know, something of that nature.
Good.
Actually, so I actually
Dude,
did reach
Han
out
would
to
meet with you in a heartbeat.
but this must have been like a year ago.
And
Yeah,
Roy,
so you
dude,
can
Roy
easily go
is
back.
trying to
I
come
was
back
like-
to the school.
hey, I'm really
This week, I keep on writing emails to the executive director to get Roy involved. He loves being with
I asked,
students.
like, do you think for that field it would be better to major in
Huh?
mechanical or
Last week.
and never heard back. But
Okay.
Dude, send the emails.
Hey, well, I just
Send the emails.
Yeah, you know,
you
sometimes
thinking?
when you ask, it, you
Who you
know,
thinking?
some of these
With the
things can
mustache.
work a lot of different ways.
So it's quite the mustache. Who are you
Sometimes
thinking?
employees can get a
of
little
emailing?
confused if you ask them
Me?
to tell them.
Hey, dude.
If you ask them, tell me what I should
Very
do.
nice.
Like,
All right.
tell me what role I
Wait
should
till
do.
you hear my story next
You
week.
know, that's
Then I
big
can guarantee you
ask for
half
them,
of you will want
you
to
know.
meet with me.
Sometimes you have to be the one who's more focused.
What's
you
up?
know, or, you know, I'm really exploring options. You know, I'd actually first like to start.
You're jealous
with
now.
understanding-
Don't be jealous.
Yeah, what's it like to work
All right.
at your company?
Right.
Why did you
What about you?
join?
Who do you think?
Okay.
You know, or see something in his background, something, the project
Nice,
he's
dude.
working
Roy?
on, or, you know,
Dude,
like,
send it.
yeah, I noticed you're working
Send
on
it to
this.
him.
Yeah.
You know,
He will meet
or
with you.
I noticed you've been there 10 years, you know.
Right.
You know,
I think I did craft it in that way because I saw.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I saw he went from mechanical and then did a master's
Okay.
in electrical.
Guys, this is good
Perfect.
practice. And I want you to send these emails, by the way.
yeah.
If you ask,
Yeah, you
yes.
can, and that's great.
If
You
you
can say, "Look,
ask
I
to meet with
noticed you
me,
made a
the
transition."
answer will be
You know,
after
I've
the
also
semester.
done the same. You know, I'm
Okay.
just curious. Like, I'd love to understand your
Don't.
about your
Maybe you
career
shouldn't
path.
ask me with me.
Whenever
Not
you
today.
ask somebody about them, they love it. They will talk and talk and talk.
Abdullah,
And then you
are you
have
writing?
this engagement.
Yes.
So you can nudge him.
Write a cold
You know,
email
and I
to
would
somebody you
say-
want to network
And
with
if they
them.
don't
Get your
respond-
computer.
It's okay to almost shop around.
Guys.
Yeah.
Like email multiple people at the company.
Yeah, because then what will
Han?
happen is you might
Okay.
get
Guys,
on,
it doesn't
somebody
have
might
to be one of our
respond,
speakers, by the way.
and
If
then
there's somebody
you might
else that
say,
you
"Oh,
found
yeah,
of
I actually
interest,
I was just trying to
can
connect
you all
with
hear
so-and-so."
me?
You know, I just thought, yeah, it'd
If
be
there's
great to have some
somebody else-
conversations with a bunch
Angela,
of
you wanna take
people.
your
just get
thing
their,
off?
their
Hang on.
perspective. That's fine.
get it taped.
You know, as long as you feel like you have a reason for those particular people, and there's something in their
Do you mind
background.
if I turn this off?
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. Sorry, I tried to give them directions. Okay, so if there's somebody else, right? John wanted to meet somebody that could talk to him about climate change, the environment. If there's somebody else that you want to write an email to, not just our speakers, write it to them. This is supposed to be productive, right? Guys, I expect that whole row to be writing emails. You are? Okay, all right.
Your friend from Microsoft started at Microsoft.
Reshma? She's awesome. Dude, she was the best speaker we had. By a mile, in fact. She was being so genuine. By a mile, she was the best. Reshma. Who are you thinking?
I was thinking her also. Can you spell her name?
You guys are ridiculous. Reshma. 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 So this is going to be interesting. Reshma is going to receive, looks like 10 emails, 10 to 15 emails, right? So she probably won't respond to all of you. That's fine. Who are you thinking? Layla? Dude, awesome. Layla's great. I just heard from her today. Layla wants to help teach this class next semester. Awesome. Okay. Okay, let's go over here. Who are you emailing?
I don't have an answer yet because I don't have a person I necessarily need to cold call. I can always just poke one person and they spread.
What does that even mean?
It means you start even building a network.
You already have your network?
Oh, significant one.
All right, there you go. That's good. John, I know John has his network, but I still want you to email somebody.
I'm sending a text to my CEO.
Okay. What about you, buddy? Elon Musk? Go for it, dude. Go for it.
Yeah, send me his email.
He's kind of a douchebag. Do you really want to meet with him?
I would love to meet with him.
It's Joe Rogan. Give me a break. What about you? But I like that you're trying.
I'll bring the marijuana.
Dude, I was in the parking lot last year when I saw his tweet about like the SCBC or whatever. Dude, he's whacked. I swear he's on drugs. Okay, who are you gonna email? Come on. You're not? You have a job? Okay.
What are you working as? Oh, so before coming here, I was looking at the energy market. So they actually funded me to study here.
So you're going back?
I have to go back.
So you can still expand your network here.
Sorry?
You can still expand your network here. Okay, I want you to think of somebody that you want to network with. Okay? Yes.
Because we have examples when people have done this successfully.
Yeah.
To see
Sure.
for people to share.
Sure.
Yeah, I love, I think you're doing it.
Cold call email thing. It's more of a cold call.
Carl, who are you thinking?
Andy Whitehead, who led one of Cantel's divisions for 20 years.
Okay.
And then I got this guy, Paul Guggenheim, who has been doing this forever as well.
Okay, good. Good for you, man. So funny. Let me see.
Let me finish it.
Who are you messaging?
That message. I wanna.
Who's that guy?
He's a guy working in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
I'm applying to Aramco.
You're applying to Aramco?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know him?
Yeah. But not very much. You wanna get
Okay.
to know him.
Okay. Okay. Very good. How about you guys? Who are you thinking?
Just crafting the email based on what Angela was showing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Was it helpful?
Yeah. Definitely.
Awesome. Very good. I will warn you guys, like I didn't want to push too hard on this. They don't look for students like profiles. Like that's rare. So like if you apply for a job, but you're not always going to get a ton of incoming was my point. But definitely her letter is excellent. Okay, what's going on, buddy? Who are you emailing? Hold on. Good. Okay. 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 Okay, so I want to make sure that some of our speakers don't receive 20 emails. So let's quickly take the pulse. Who's emailing Layla? One? Layla was fantastic. I just had coffee with her last week. think about emailing her. She is connected as hell. And she wants to help you. I promise you, out of that whole group, she will go to bat for you more than anybody. Okay, Layla, who's our second? Can't remember now. Damien, my buddy Damien. Close enough. Who's emailing Damien? Oh, he's going to be devastated. Nobody's emailing Damien? He's right here. He's in Lafayette. Huh? You already emailed him? Oh, okay. Did anybody?
Well, I just wanted to find out if you could connect me with any books that he would recommend.
Yeah, maybe it's been too long since Layla and Damien. Guys, Damien was head of e-commerce at Facebook. Forget that. He's a salesman like hell. He knows how to sell himself. Who else did we have? So we had Han. Who's emailing Han? I don't want more than 5 people to email each person. Okay. Okay, so then we had Dean Lyons. Who's emailing Dean Lyons? 2. Okay. Then we had Reshma. Did I already say Reshma? All right, who's emailing Reshma? Reshma, okay. Roy? Okay. Okay, it's a good mix. Okay. Other. Who's emailing other outside of the scope? Who are you emailing?
Somebody I networked with on my internship over the summer.
Awesome. Okay.
I'm emailing you.
Me. Okay. No more than 5. Who's emailing me? Who's emailing me? Just 2? Okay, we can deal with 2. Okay. All right. Okay. So, Angela, this is your workshop, so either we can ask them to share or some of theirs. We can have them discuss it as a group, share with each other, or what would you like?
Well, I think a couple of things. I'm just curious about people who have successfully networked, whether it's through linking.
So you can. Yeah.
I'm just curious about people who have successfully been networking, and if they were willing to share, what are some tips that they would give each other about sharing? So who's interested in sharing?
I feel like this is one of my biggest strengths, is networking.
Okay.
And you really touched on it in terms of like the transactional aspect of things. A lot of the time, it's what can I get out of this? And people rarely think about what can I get. So even though you want to get so much out of networking, spend like 10, 15 minutes a day trying to help somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With expecting nothing in return.
That's great.
Most of the time it's going to come back.
Yeah.
Almost every single one of these speakers, with the exception, I think, of one of them, was a friend of mine. And they did this as a favor to me, right? Or I just asked them. Because at some point I had offered help to them in some way. Dean Lyons started his new positions. I cold emailed him. I said, how can I help you? Right? Roy, I was trying to help him get into venture capital. Damien, we've helped each other a million times. He's literally saved my life before. Actually. This whole group, right? Were people that I had offered help to, or vice versa, and they did this out of kindness. Yeah, if you make yourself available, you'll be very surprised how often people will come to bat for you.
And I'm happy to hold a working session if people are interested. Where we could put together what is your plan, and that could be something you start today, which is you really have to look at this as, again, a problem to be solved, and it requires a strategy. So if my strategy is, I really don't know what I want to do. I could go in a number of different directions. I don't know the kind of company I want to work for. I don't know what I want to do. So is my strategy for the next 3 months, is it to talk to enough people in enough companies to actually really have an information interview? So, but the time I finish those conversations, I now have clarity, and then I can start a different type of networking. Because if you don't know where you're headed, nobody else is going to know for you. And so then you may waste an opportunity, you know. And so creating a strategy and a hierarchy around, okay, these are the top 10 people I'm going to connect with. This is why I'm going to connect with them, and these are some of the things I want to ask them. Or this is the top 10 companies that I want to link with and connect with, and you know, so creating a real hierarchy and a strategy, and then beginning to fill in that spreadsheet on a regular basis. I can't stress that enough, that it's not, you know, this won't work if you wait until April and then you're like, okay, I'm going to start networking, you know, just slow and steady. It's true. I mean, these are boring things to say, but, you know, slow and steady wins a race. You just keep on doing it, you know, and you know, the world gives it back to you the more you put in, you know, it just does. And I know it sounds a little bit kind of, you know, crystal gazing, but it's not, seriously.
Yeah, guys, please actually send your emails, like today. I want you to actually try to set up meetings. The school may be horrified that our speakers are getting these many emails at once, but they'll survive.
So I think somebody else, who else has something to share about, you said you joined professional organizations or professional societies?
Yeah, conferences are super helpful, even if it's something that you've been a part of for like a long time. And in my case, back at RPI, I was part of Women in Nuclear. So every year they have like regional conferences and national conferences. And if you just go and if you separate yourself from the other students you go with, sit down at a table with professionals and say, hi, I have no idea what's going on. People are more than willing to tell you exactly what's going on and what they do. So it's definitely a fun way to meet people. It's how I know that there are actual master's degrees in fire safety, and I've never heard of that before. But everybody always has an interesting story to tell, regardless of the position or regardless of what you're doing. So it's worth striking up a conversation, and it's also worth looking for conferences and fields that you're interested in. Like recently I had an email about a nuclear innovation conference that's going to be happening in March, and I'm probably going to go out of my way to attend that just because it's going to be cool and I'm going to meet people. So going to conferences is worth it because you'll find like-minded individuals.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're curious. You know, in curiosity, it's, you know, people know when you're curious, and when you're curious, you open yourself up to hearing and asking and inquiring, you know. And so if you go into this with, I'm curious, you know, I don't need to tell people everything I know or don't know. I need to know what they know and be curious and ask questions. People love to talk about themselves. Ask an open-ended question. Always ask open-ended questions that cannot be answered with a yes or a no. If you're an expert at open-ended questions, you can go very far in life, I think. So it's kind of the pinnacle of coaching, right? So.
I have a story you mentioned earlier about like following up with people. For my second internship, I was at a career fair and I was talking to a company, and the guy there knew I was like early on in undergrad, and just took like a red pen to my resume and just like destroyed it, just like ripped it apart, and like was giving me like all this advice on like how to make it better and everything like that, which I really appreciated, but also like I was also standing there like, wow, like I have no chance in this company. Any chance that I thought I had it was like shattered. But I went home that night and I redid the things that he like told me to do, and like I sent him it, and I was like, hey, thanks so much for like the tips, and I got an interview the next day.
That's fantastic.
I'm pretty sure it was because I followed up with the new resume.
Yeah.
Goldman Sachs used to do a thing, this is true, that when people would be interviewing as a test, they'd be like, this is terrible, and they would tear up your resume in front of you to see how people would react. Seriously. In my interview with them, and after I interviewed 19 times with them, and I got that position, in the middle of my interview, somebody walked in, they started talking about a sporting game, or a sports event, for like a solid 10 minutes. And I just sat there and didn't know what to do. Yeah, stress interviews, but that's good.
Yeah, 19 times, that's a...
It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, follow-up is really, really important. I can't stress that enough. Particularly, and we've said that before about when you've had interviews, it really, really makes a difference. When I was a recruiter, I would actually wonder why people weren't following up. I'd be like, oh, how come the person's not following up? We just had an interview. I spent time with them. You know, I'm expecting a follow-up. And if I don't get it, I'm usually going to be like, okay, if they're all about the same and there's 5 candidates and 2 people followed up, guess who I'm going to go forward with? The 2 people who followed up.
How fast do you expect to follow up?
Pretty much the same day.
At the latest.
Yeah.
At the absolute latest, the next day.
Yeah.
At the absolute latest, the next day.
Yeah, unless you had something you really had to look into to answer the question, and you can qualify that. But, you know, again, this speaks to your interest in the company. You know, am I really interested in this company? And that's what you have to ask yourself, actually. Am I interested? Is that why I'm not following up so quickly? Because I guarantee if you're really interested and you really want to work there, you're going to follow up. That's just human nature. You know, if you're not that interested and you're dragging your feet and you're going through the motions, you're going to take some time. Because it's really not high up on your priority list. It's not something you really want to do. You just say, I got to get a job. That's all you're thinking. And that's when you start panicking and you start saying, I've just got to get a job, I've just got to get a job. That's when it starts coming through. That message starts coming through to people.
Totally.
In the past, I've been told it's a neat idea to follow up with handwritten letters. But in today's age, I don't really understand how you would send that. Like, what are you gonna get someone's home address?
Yeah, cut out newspaper letters. Yeah, that's
you can send it just to the
creepy.
Company. You just send the name of the company. Actually, people do that. I've had some candidates do that. And there's always like, whenever it comes through, we all gather around. We're like, did you see this? It's like, whoa, it's like some kind of arcade, you know, it's like something, whoa, this is going back in history, you know, we're going to put this in a glass case, you know, and preserve it for the future. And we will like be, wow, she just wrote this. Did you see that letter she wrote? It's like, yeah, so it can actually, it can cause some conversation. You know, and you just stand out again. You know, it's just an interesting, way to do. So.
Okay, so guys, thank you very much, Angela. Let's give her a huge hand. We have like 1 minute. Any last final questions? Of course, you can come talk to her. She works here. Right? Mm-hmm. She works here. Yep. So you can set up a time with her. Otherwise, I hope this was helpful. And next week should be great. I'm very excited. So be here next week. It's going to be big. Okay? All right. Take care, guys. I'm meeting with Nick.